awesome.
Quite a lot of semitone
You've been practicing.
fun in there. No, I've been out for a week. I've been out playing the guitar.
You've been playing, I can tell. It sounds awesome.
It makes a difference.
It does. It's amazing. Hey guys, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here, hello.
Attenuators.
Oh, there's the click. Awesome.
What was that?
It was the click. It was the click. There may or may not have been a click. You might have heard a click through some of that audio. We've recently changed our recording setup using a Universal Audio Apollo 8P and a Mac laptop and Logic. And Logic has a click track in it, and the click was going. So apologies for that. If that was audible in any way, it shouldn't be.
You might have been playing some sort of 15/8 groove.
Yeah.
Against that click.
Dude, that guy's timing.
Amazing. He's amazing.
He's been to jazz school. Okay, so we took a while getting here with this video. This is an introduction to attenuation, rather than everything you need to know about attenuation, because it's a pretty complex subject.
Yes, indeedy-didy.
And to be fair, I think we've hinted in a couple of videos past, haven't we, that we'll do a video on attenuation and then cue loads and loads of comments about when are you going to do the video on attenuation, and I have to admit to being a bit grumpy about it a couple of times. So we're going to try and de-grump. I'm going to try and de-grump about it. Because for me, right, if you just want a quieter amp, get a quieter amp.
Sure.
However, hopefully, as we'll discover, there are benefits to attenuation. Should we reference the most famous attenuation story ever?
Go on then.
Eddie Van Halen.
Yes.
And his Marshall Plexi.
Yes. And what did he do?
Well, he misquoted it. He said he used a variac and turned the voltage up.
Well, originally, he plugged his power into a light dimmer switch.
Insert every spuriously true piece of information about Eddie Van Halen here.
Right.
What it ended up with was him using what's known as a variac, which is a voltage variable thing that you can just buy off the shelf. RS Components still sell them. And it takes it from, whatever the wall is putting out down to less than that. And he found that by using that on his Marshall Plexi and turning it down to about 90 volts by all accounts.
Right.
Bearing in mind 110 comes out the wall in the States. 120, 110? Something like that. Anyway, by taking it from that amount down to about 90, he was able to push the amp harder. All of a sudden discovered that actually if you attenuate the amp in terms of the voltage it's seeing, it can sound a bit squashier.
Yes.
But that's not the only way to do it.
No. And he did go through a set of valves every night.
Yeah. Let's get into that, shall we? So what do we got then, Dan?
Okay.
To begin our journey.
Right, so we've got 3 different types of attenuation. We've got the passive attenuator. So we've got the power pad here by Palmer. Let's so there we go. We've got from the amplifier. So this the head or the power output gets plugged into here, and then we have 2 speaker. So you'll notice there is no power input on here.
Nothing at all, which is why it's completely passive, and it is a resistive load attenuator.
Very good.
Correct?
Correct. So what's happening is, you'll notice this is an 8 ohm load, and it's very important if you're looking at attenuators.
Are you holding it?
So yeah, 8 ohm here. So the head and speaker, the output has to be 8 ohms, speaker has to be 8 ohms, and this will sit in between that. And what happens is, you'll see, right, the bypass switch here, which bypasses the attenuation. When you turn the attenuator on, you have resistors. Generally, it's a resistive. Resistive load. Some load boxes put some inductance and things to mirror what's going on with the speaker.
Okay, so it is a non-reactive, passive, resistive load.
Yes.
The important words in there: non-active. There's no power in it.
That's
2,
right.
Non-reactive,
Right.
which is what Dan was getting into a bit there. We'll get into a bit in a sec. And what else did we say? Resistive.
Resistive. So if you can imagine, you've got an 8 ohm thing going into it and 8 ohms going out of it. If I put a 16 ohm resistor in series with that output, and then I put an 8 ohm speaker in parallel with that, that's going to drop that load back down to 8 ohms. But I've got a 16 ohm resistor in series. So I still have 8 ohms on the output, but I've got more resistance going on, soaking a bit of that power. Now, if I put a higher value resistor, and then I've got to adjust the value of resistor I've got going to ground. So every time you notch it down, that's what you're doing. You're changing the load, you're changing the amount of resistance, but you're at every stage, you still have that 8 ohm output.
Still seeing 8 ohms.
But what's happening is you've got the power, the watts coming from the amplifier, and then that is being soaked by the resistance. And so you've got less power coming out. And what's going on with the rest of that power? Heat. So the most important thing with these to be aware of with these passive load boxes is the heat. It's that energy has to dissipate. It's got to go some way. So that's a big.
So that's number one. Okay, passive, resistive, and for that you can look at things like the Dr. Z air brake, and there are many others from many different manufacturers, but we've got the Palmer one as an example of the breed.
Yeah.
Moving on from that, active, which is what the Fryette Power Station is, and the difference between active and passive, as the name implies, is it takes power, and in that case you can both attenuate and boost. So It's got a set of power tubes in it. It requires mains power, obviously. That's the difference between active and passive. It's probably reactive as well, is it? And if it's not reactive, it's certainly got some controls on the front.
Yeah, so exactly. You can. So what happens is, when you get the amp nice and loud and cooking, sounds great. If you attenuate that, you get these this thing called a Fletcher-Munson curve, which is the way that the ears perceive the EQ curves in relation to loudness.
Volume, of course.
And so what the things like the power station allow you to do is make adjustments for the differences that we perceive in the EQ.
We may find out in a second when we plug the Palmer in that actually when you pad it right down to nothing, you lose all the presence and maybe the EQ changes. That's kind of what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So one way of doing that is putting controls on your attenuator which enable you to change that. And then there is actually reactive, where the attenuator has components in it which mimic what an actual speaker does, which is to do with inductance, all that stuff. Do you understand that?
So if you've got a speaker, right, and the impedance from the speaker it's dynamic. It changes with the amount of how much energy is going into it, and so what the reactive load, it will mimic what's going on with that. But most important thing to remember though when you're talking about attenuators is that this sits between the power output stage of the amplifier and the speaker, and no matter what you do with attenuators, it really is only 50% of the battle, because the other part of that battle is the speaker, because the speaker is when it's really pushing and when it's reacting in that way, it does its own thing as well.
Yeah.
So and thus the reactive thing and compensating for that, but it's only ever compensating for the natural thing that happens with the speakers, which we all love.
So if you want to get into the science of that, please hit up Wikipedia and or any other long technical forum that will explain it in detail, because I guess what we're talking about today is hearing the differences. So far we've got two different types of attenuator. We've got our straight resistive passive, and we've also got a reactive active. Mm-hmm. There are others. There are various versions of that.
Yep.
The third kind we're going to look at is what's called power scaling, which happens inside the amp, which is something approaching what I was talking about with the variac before, but not quite the same. With an external variac, you stick it in between the amp and the wall, and it regulates all the voltage coming out of the wall into the amp.
Yep.
with power scaling and amplifier, it will pick a point in the circuit to make that voltage drop. And
yeah, so it's the B plus voltage generally, which is the big one, the high DC one. So we've got a laser J20 here, which has the attenuator on the output, and that reduces the V plus voltage going to the output valves. So what happens is, as you reduce the B plus voltage to it, you then reduce the amount of power that's coming from the output valves. What you don't reduce though is the bias voltage and that going to it.
All the other voltages in the amp, which can be problematic if you drop them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to do it. However, as you reduce that B plus voltage, if you're hitting it with the same amount of power, the valves will distort more anyway. Yeah. So yeah, well, you'll see, but when we get it down to like really low, you'll hear that as we reduce that voltage, it is introducing its own sort of distortion.
Yeah, people talk about crossover distortion and
all that stuff,
unnatural distortions. So okay, let's start. Let's hear something very quickly, but just to summarise that, if you're going to do a dead octopus, if you're going to reduce the power of your amp, you need to reduce something somewhere, right? So an external attenuator like this sits between the power amp and the speaker. Mm-hmm. If you do it within the amp, you can talk about voltages in the amp. The final thing, just to mention briefly, which hopefully we'll do on the show one day, did you know that Eminence do a speaker that's got a turny thing on the back?
I saw that.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
The technical term is turny thing.
Turny thing.
And it sits on the back of the speaker and it is its own attenuator.
Yes.
So we'll do that one day.
Very cool.
Okay, so as we said, if you haven't fallen asleep already, this is an introduction to attenuation. And as if by magic, we have the amp that probably needs attenuating as much as any, even though it's only a 50, not 100. It's a 50 watt plexi, and this is a vicious amplifier.
You gave it a little bit of love before, and the sound is astonishing, but it did pin me to the back of the wall.
And we'll come on to the pedal boards in a minute. This is a pedal board that I just took to Germany, 2 pedal boards, which we'll talk about in a sec. So let's hear the gloriousness of this Marshall, shall we, Dan?
Yes.
And for anyone who knows about 4-input Marshalls, you've got 2 channels. You've got the normal channel and the high treble channel. I'll just show what happens when you turn those 2 knobs, please. Two things I'm going to be doing 2 things today. One is leaping up and down to the computers just to check the input levels on our mic preamps. Secondly, I decided we should introduce the dear old dB meter again, shouldn't we?
It's not that loud. Everyone gets really concerned for our hearing and that. It's not that loud. Also,
it's quite loud.
It's quite loud, but we're doing it in really short bursts. We're sort of, emotionally prepared for it.
Yeah. Don't worry. Just don't worry too much.
We're losing our hearing, so you don't have to. That's the kind of guys we are.
Right, so we can see that, hopefully. Dan, give the old Marshall some love again.
Oh, the maker! Ah! Where did it get up to then?
It was on about, the high treble was just past 2, and the normal was on 4. Okay, let's do this. All right, cover your ears, everybody. Simon, cover your ears. I'm going to turn it up halfway on both channels. It's its own thing, and if you've never experienced it, please do so.
I just want to grow a big mustache now and buy a Mustang and go driving and be the man I was meant to be, because that was amazing.
Is there delay on at the moment?
No.
No. Okay, cool. So you will have seen what it was reading on the dB meter there. I think it was up to nearly 120 dB. I mean, that's loud. That's really loud. And as you get past about sort of 2 to 3, it just starts overdriving.
That's it.
So it doesn't really get any louder at that point.
Yeah.
And of course, that's the sound that we all want. Hence the need for attenuation. So shall we begin?
Yes. But we're going to come back to that. It's so good.
Actually, do us a favour. Just play a sec. So one of the no, let's not. Let's not get into the pedal board yet. Let's do that later. So we're going to take a quick cut. Please keep that in your head, and when we come back, we will have an attenuator plugged in.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, and you're back in the room.
Okay. Now we've got the Palmer Power Pad PD06 MkII plugged in, as we explained before. Dan's going to play. We're going to turn the Marshall up. Simon, please cover your ears. And then I'm going to turn the power pad on and turn it down in increments so you can hear. We'll leave the mic preamps set where they are so that you'll actually hear and see the physical drop in volume. Go. That is the load box down to 18% of its, the amp down to 18%, roughly, of its total output. We were pretty much where we were on the output, so it's kind of as loud as it was. That was the reading that was reading 100 and whatever it was. What are we reading now?
100 and def.
Go on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the audio interface, and I'm going to increase the input gain on the mic so that the mic's more sensitive, so that we're going to start low, we're going to play, and then I'm going to turn the amp up, decrease the mic gain so that hopefully you'll be hearing roughly the same volume in your ears, but you'll be hearing the tonal difference of using the attenuator.
Okay, interesting. All right,
does
very
that make
good.
sense?
Yes, absolutely.
I've got to work out how to do this because... So I've picked a point on the input level meters there, and I'm going to try and hit that with each successive tweak of your knob. Okay, go.
Just so, man. So Oh man.
It's so. I'll tell you what I'm. Sorry to reach for your nether regions there. Oh, it's buzzing because the amp's so loud. I don't know what the mic's going to be hearing. What were you perceiving here in the room?
Well, because the sound pressure level is so different, it's so. There's obviously more feedback from the guitar because this is resonating with that sound pressure.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a different experience. The quieter you got, the more compressed it seemed.
Yeah.
And then as you went louder, there's a little bit more clarity, there's a less compression, a bit more detail.
Yeah.
A bit more dynamic range. To be expected, really, because we're dissipating all that energy and it's coming out smaller. But the experience like that, when it's so loud, it could be exactly the same sound, and you wouldn't know because it's such a radically different experience.
The physical experience is so different.
So different.
That's my kind of bugbear with attenuation is that if you're talking about taking well, in this case, a 50 watt amp and turning it down to bedroom levels, it's like, yeah, you can do that, but maybe get something more bedroom appropriate. For me, it's just instead of going from there to there, it's going from there to there.
Yes.
Where it starts to become really relevant because you just take the real edge of the amp off and you just knock it down by a little bit.
Yeah. That, and see, at the moment we were on 70%.
Yeah.
And that was still plenty loud, but it had the amp character.
Totally.
It was all there, but yeah, it just took that edge off. So yeah, and
I think it sounds.
It does sound very good.
It sounded better than I thought it was going to sound, to be honest.
Palmer stuff is always great.
Yeah.
And they are particularly good at this. So, for a passive low box, they're fantastic.
Yeah, really, really very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was number one, passive resistive load box. Let's move on to active reactive.
Very good.
Load box, and then we'll do the old clicky fingers thing again.
1, 2, 3. And we're back in the room.
Right, Fryette Power Station. Same thing. It can operate or not operate, which is the equivalent of this switch. If Simon can see from over there, I don't know if he's focusing on that or not. He's like, please give me a chance. Give me a chance. Just 20 seconds would be good. Just give me a chance. And the equivalent of that is here. So if I turn the Marshall on.
Oh, man.
So we're at full mumbo again on the Marshall. Man, it's visceral. It's absolutely visceral.
The thing, because it punches you so hard, you're in a different state.
Yeah.
It's like our amazing shoegaze episode. Where we're talking about how just the volume would put people in a different state. And that's exactly what it does.
Come on, right, so I'll turn it on. Oh no, it's gone off. I have a question.
Yeah.
What's the input level do?
It's like a pad on the input level. So if you're hitting it like really hard, then you can.
Okay, cool.
So now if you crank the amp even more.
2 seconds, I'm going to turn the attenuation off just to show you what the attenuator is doing. Cover your ears. Okay, play. 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 I hope the dB meter told the story.
Man.
It's going to be fun editing the audio for this because, as you've seen, I've had to be up trying to kind of keep relatively the same what the microphone is, you know, where the preamp is, so that, because obviously if you take a loud Marshall and you turn it down and you don't change the mic gain, all you're hearing is quite weak sound, so you need to boost the mic gain for it to sound somewhat similar. But I hope, we haven't done extensive kind of A/B testing or anything, but I hope that's a good indicator of the difference between passive and active.
Yeah,
reactive.
I mean, it's, okay, the Power Station, I mean, obviously we've had it on the show before, we love it, which is why it's still here. Keep forgetting to send it back.
Oops.
Because it is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, that being able to control a bit more depth at those lower volumes, that's a huge thing.
What was interesting is when we got right down low, the tone controls were still doing something, but they weren't. Again, probably what you're talking about with Fletcher Munson. The louder everything is, the more you perceive the difference, right?
Exactly.
I don't know if that's what Fletcher Munson is, but it kind of makes logical sense to me anyway. Certainly, the louder you play, the more incremental differences are gonna make a big difference. When we were quiet and I was messing around with the bright and the depth and all of that, didn't have anywhere near the same effect because it's not as loud.
Yep. Yeah.
But in terms of being able to get the Marshall to drive, there's no overdrive pedals on. There's nothing happening here. It's doing the job, isn't it?
Absolutely. There's one great thing about the Power Station as well. If your amp doesn't have an effects loop, but that's the sound you love, you can attenuate, do that stuff, and then there is an effects loop in the Power Station. So you can put your delays and reverbs and stuff and have that after the power stage. It's very, very good.
Right, because if you were doing it in your amp, you'd have all kinds of
If you're doing the amp after the
issues.
preamp stage,
Yeah.
right? Actually, this is a good point. Even if the amp does have a preamp, when you dime it like that, it's the power stage that's overdriving. So whether you've got an effects loop or not, that effects loop is happening between the preamp and the power amp. And the power stage is still going to saturate and it's going to change the gain structure of those effects in the loop.
Yes, of course.
With something like that, it's coming after the power stage. So the amp is just doing its lovely, glorious thing.
Well, let's have a look at that then. So we've actually got a couple of things to put in the effects loop here. I've got this is the board I took to Germany. I've got a free the tone flight time delay and unusually a Kingsley Page DS preamp, which is essentially the second bit of a Dumble overdrive special, which I use after another preamp to get a bit of, more amp-like overdrive, if you like.
Yep.
So should we plug that into the power station and just have a quick see?
Let's have a listen to it at the moment.
In the Marshall?
Which is where it is. So
okay.
I mean, that is righteous.
Keep
That is
going.
righteous.
It's good sound.
That's amazing.
I'm going to turn on the Page DS.
You can't handle the truth.
What's going on there?
Yeah, no idea. And the delay.
It's literally, it's something's crapping out, isn't it?
Well, it's the...
Is it the phase inverter?
No, it's the amount of juice it's taken from the amplifier. It's just hitting that... don't forget that in a Dumble, the EQ is pre-OD. In this one, it's after.
Okay, keep going.
Okay, so I'll just make the note that while it's like that, you hear that the delay, it's hitting the power amp stage like it would if you had a delay going straight into the front of the amplifier and that preamp was overdriving.
Right.
Yeah, it you can hear it as it hits the power valves. The power valves are already saturated, so there's less dynamic range. Yeah.
God.
Got it?
Just try that a sec. I think I've got it.
So,
Not bad.
awesome.
Okay, so it wasn't
Awesome.
working in the loop of the amp. So something about the position of the loop in the amp has changed.
So don't forget. So when we crank the amp up like that, right, we are increasing the amount of preamp gain as well as power amp gain.
Yeah.
Everything's going up, and that is being sent to the effects end. When it gets to that point and it's just hitting that with so much level, it's going to cave in.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, it took me just a second to realise what was going on there.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course.
So, but
Which is why in your really heavy gained amp and you're just driving the whole thing and you stick something in the loop, it doesn't sound very good.
Hello.
Ah,
There we go.
I don't know why I don't do this more often.
But in this scenario,
yeah.
everything is sort of under control. We've got the total output of the amplifier is going to that, and then it's attenuating that, setting that into the effects. Sounds amazing.
That's very cool.
It's cool, isn't it? It's an awesome feature. So, you know, any vintage valve amp, you've got an effects loop for it. It's great. So cool.
Which in the Palmer that wouldn't have worked because we'd have had the same problem.
Exactly.
So it just would that particular preamp was just killing it. It was making it virtually impossible.
Yeah.
Just before we move on to the Lazy J, I'll explain what's happening there. So as I said, I went to Germany just recently, had to put a very small board together to take, which you can see before you here, using Quartermaster instead of G2 because it's easy to travel with. A little bit of a fiddly there because I have to put the loop on the same thing as a tuner to get it on the board. That all goes in the front end. However, for the loop, because I was doing some stuff demonstrating loops, the Kingsley Page DS and Free the Tone Flight Time Delay, they use Dan's Remote Loopy 2. Now what the Remote Loopy 2 does is it enables you to have the effects back by the amplifier so that you don't need long cable runs to get all the way back out to your board. Because as we know, loops in amps, they vary, don't they?
They do.
They vary massively.
They do.
And if you're sending like 40 feet of cable out and back again through a couple of effects,
It's going to have a massive difference.
you're losing a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
So this enables you to keep the cables as short as possible back by the amp and just run it out to any old foot switch
Any latching foot switch and then just turn the loops on and off.
out the front, and that does the job because there's no signal. There's no signal going through any of that. So, yeah. So that's how that works. So
Yeah.
that's just what you heard. Yeah.
The
Killer.
power station, man. It's
Killer.
It's totally awesome.
Okay, one more finger snap, and then we're going to come on to the last bit of attenuation we're going to look at today.
1, 2, 3. And we're back in the room.
A lot of getting up and down today because there's things to move about and stuff to change. We're now into the lazy J20.
Sorry.
We're laughing at? A lot of getting up and down
I
today?
saw this. No, there's this amazing thing with Tony Blackburn.
Right.
Right. That he's done his own series of fitness videos called Tone with Tone. He does this thing. He says, people have asked me how I keep in such great shape. He does this thing with lunges. He's got a bowl of crisps. He goes, and if you lunge, you get a reward.
For a minute there, I thought you were serious.
That's exactly what he does, man. It's amazing. Anyway, he either has a serious medical problem, or he is the most hilarious genius in the history of the world.
You can't sue us for either of those things. Right. Come on then.
All right.
Lazy J20.
So, Lazy J20.
What you will have heard there, I was just waiting for him to go. What you will have heard there was Dan started playing, the amp was at full chat. Well, it wasn't, the volume's about kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was overdriving very nicely. I turned on the attenuator, which in this case, as you said, affects the B plus voltage on the power valves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's affecting the power valve voltage only. I guess some people refer to that as power scaling.
Yep. Now Jesse does something a bit different. Just so I can.
Okay. Well, while he looks that up, I'll explain.
I have been having a text conversation with him.
Right.
So, yes, reduces it's on the DC voltage, and he also has. So it reduces the DC voltage everywhere, except for the trem. Right. And also his the VAC pots that he uses are custom made for him, with that switch on it, so that when it bypasses this, the whole thing is taken out of the circuit. Yeah. Which is really important because if you think about,
so it's not just on the power valves then; it's everywhere in the amp.
The DC voltage, it's everywhere except for the trem.
It's interesting because it was losing gain everywhere.
Yeah.
It wasn't just losing gain in the power stage; it was losing gain. So, sorry, just to finish that before he gets onto it, I turned on the internal power reduction thing, turned it all the way around to its minimum volume. You will have heard you could have heard and seen the physical volume change thanks to the dB meter. And then I turned the input up on the mic preamp, so that you could hear the sound of it at a more sensible volume being recorded.
But again, like we're talking about with the Palmer unit, if you just take the edge off it, take 30% off it. So I mean, if you turn it up.
Yep.
And
I'll put it dead center.
Okay, dead center.
But here's the point. If you're looking at an attenuator to take your very loud amp to kind of bedroom levels, what were we there? 102 dB.
Yeah,
you're going to get kicked out of any flat.
Absolutely.
Any flat you ever move into.
Yeah.
So getting it from loud down to bedroom level
But can I show you one thing with this amp though? Actually, if you want to play.
Shall I play that guitar just to keep things
you play the
consistent?
guitar.
While Dan's doing that, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to Jim Dunlop, Urjan van der Laan, for sending me these plectrums. I've been trying to find them everywhere.
I don't have any, but Mick's got some now, so that's great.
You don't even like these.
No, I tell you what.
1.5 prime tones, they are ace. Thank you.
I use, is it the 1.6 prime tones with 2? Anyway.
So what were you going to show me?
Okay, here's the trick with this amplifier. It's going to be louder, so...
Okay, I just need to keep an eye on the...
Yep.
That's proper old school.
It's Neil Young.
Yeah, yeah.
It's that's that sound. However,
I wish I could. Why can't I remember any Neil Young right at this moment? Why can't I remember any Neil Young right at this moment? I can't. Sorry.
I can only think of.
I've listened to that blooming country, noise record where they're all in the garage so many times. Can't even remember the name of that.
Okay, so that's the amp. Not completely flat out, almost.
Yeah.
All right. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the...
I'm just going to turn the input gain down because I guess we're going to get louder.
No, that's it.
Oh, right.
We're going to turn it down.
Right.
So now just play through it.
Bloom. Sorry, the dB meter went off, so we'll just finish that. We're attenuating for tone there, not for volume, are we? Because we were up at 108 dB.
Yeah, but the thing is now, but not uncomfortable, right? That was loud? It's not going to be bedroom worthy.
For me and you, maybe not, but for...
Okay.
If I played that at home, my wife would kick me in the nuts.
Of course, repeatedly.
With a pair of boots.
The difference is, though, that's attenuated about 30-35%.
Yeah, it's where the tone is.
Exactly, exactly. Now,
Totally.
if I go back up to where it was...
there was more clarity. The amp sounded better, attenuated a bit in some way because it wasn't kind of dying on itself.
15-watt speaker.
Yeah.
Pull that back a bit, and now you've got this. So this is attenuated. So give that a whirl.
Loud.
So,
and the wrong notes.
But that's the sound of that amplifier, and I absolutely love it. I've had that amp. So funny. I googled last night to find out what was going on. One of the first things I see was this review from Guitar Bar magazine. It's a review that I wrote back in 2009 or something.
Nepotism there at all.
So weird.
I'll tell you what I love about this video. We started off talking about attenuation and we just played really loud guitar for quite a lot of it.
Good.
And
if my balls hadn't dropped before this, they certainly have now.
To be fair,
they certainly have now.
For what it's worth, that summarises my thoughts on attenuation.
Okay.
Is what you've just demonstrated, which is taking a huge amp, and I've said this before and I'll say it again now, taking a huge amp and trying to get it down to bedroom levels is, to me, is kind of a waste of time. Because at that point, you may as well have Yamaha THR, any one of the modern awesome digital modelling amps. Because at that volume, you're just not hearing the nuances of that fantastic amp. Go up a bit from there, go up to kind of wife and neighbour annoying levels, where to put some numbers on it, I don't know, 90, 95. What I was talking before was maybe 70, 75, 80. Get up to 1995, i.e., people are going to start shouting at you. Then a nice amp attenuated seems to work for me. And obviously above that, everything's gravy. But
yeah, it's interesting. Like the Power Station has, you can turn it right down. Yeah. And that's fine. But it has other things. Yeah. Like that effect stick thing.
Extremely usable.
So cool. It's so cool.
And of course, I don't know if you said this earlier. If you've got a little amp, you can actually turn it up. Yeah. It will boost as well as cut.
So the Laser J is 20 watts maximum, and that has a 50-watt power amp. So I can crank that, then put that into a 4x12, get that sound louder.
Get it big.
Actually, that into a 4x12 is mega anyway. But one thing about the little amps, even 1 watt can be really loud if it's going into an efficient speaker.
Yeah. Well, actually, on that subject then, how are we doing for time, Simon?
1 hour, 5 minutes.
1 hour, 5 minutes. Okay, we've got 5 minutes to finish. Okay.
All right.
I'm going to do one thing just to finish, to talk about low wattage. Victory Sheriff 22 has...
I love it, you just peel it like that.
Has a dedicated...
low speaker.
0.3 watt speaker output.
Okay, so so that's a tap off the output transformer.
As far as I'm aware.
Right.
It's completely separate.
And
thing.
You can have any speaker between 4 and 16 ohms in it. That's very cool.
So
all right, let's do it.
I'm going to plug it into the 412.
Yeah, let's do that.
We're going to hear it, and that's going to be the end of today. Because, as I said, did some clinics for Victory amps just recently, and I got to know this amp much better than I thought I already knew it. So, and was quite impressed. Off.
I had a guitar lesson while you were away.
Right.
Guess who with?
Yngwie Malmsteen.
No. You stole one of his licks. Hang on.
Oh, Sean Tubbs.
Sean Tubbs!
Where's the horn?
Where's the horn? Here it is. Sean Tubbs. So rare I get to go on that thing. It's very cool. It's very cool. Man,
Sean Tubbs is awesome.
Sean Tubbs is amazing.
Let's stick with that guitar.
Yeah. guys, go and check out his YouTube channel. Some of the demos he does is incredible, but just listen to the guy play guitar. And it's so cool, man. He was so lovely.
What did you learn?
I learned I need more lessons from Sean Tubbs. But we're talking about concepts and shapes and things. Yeah, no, it was very, very, very cool. Very, very cool. But I want to get him on the show. But
Yeah.
He doesn't get over here much, unfortunately.
That is a shame.
So if the mountain won't go to Muhammad,
Such a monster player.
Nashville. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Right. Victory Sheriff 22. This is in the full power setting, so the regular power output. This is how much clean it has. Daniel, enjoy.
Oh, that's lovely. Nice.
So, pretty loud. It's overdriving a little bit.
Yeah.
So a Strat will push it a little bit. That'll
Right.
push it a lot.
Speaking of, oh yeah, he's coming over soon.
James Hetfield?
No.
Great call.
Greg Cox coming over.
Beep.
Greg Cox. So we spent.
Come on.
Come on, you! Stop talking, you idiot! Is that it? Is that from the 0.3 watt output?
No. That's the full power. So it's got no problem pushing 110, 112 dB.
Okay, sounds
So,
great.
For
Sounds
context, here is the 0.3
really great. Thank you.
watt
Oh, yeah.
speaker tap.
We do it?
That was the Sheriff 22 at 0.3 watts, absolutely flat out. So master and gain all the way around to 10. We were struggling to hit 87 dB, I think.
Very, very nice.
So, as a kind of a round off,
Yeah.
another example of attenuation that's already in an amp, so you don't have to worry about another box. But
Does the 44 do that as well?
no, the 44. So in the 44, there's a low power mode. In this one, they decided to make it properly bedroom friendly.
Right. Okay.
Whereas in the 44, it's more like a tone thing. It's
Yeah,
more
yeah, of
about
course.
just more, but it's still giggable, but not. But that's really all about bedroom playing.
Sure.
So yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Some great sounds. Really interesting experience though, going through those different sound pressure levels.
Yeah.
and how you perceive it.
And I hope when the audio is done, I hope it makes sense because, as I explained a few times, you know, the volume of the amp goes down, so the volume of the microphone has to increase significantly in order for the sound to be kind of similar.
Yep.
To get a tonal. Because there's two things, aren't there, with attenuation? One is volume, and the other is tone. Some people would say they are one and the same thing, and I would be that person.
Well, I've heard some loud, bad sounds.
Yeah, sure.
You know, a lot of people try and cover that up by being loud.
Yeah.
And
I guess what I'm saying is you can't talk about either in isolation because
of course.
They are part one. They're two parts of the same thing.
Yeah. They work together.
So, what if you had to be attenuating? What would you take?
Oh, the Power Station.
You would.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's good. I'm really impressed with the Palmer because I'm guessing the Palmer's not very much money.
Okay. Oh, it's a different. You know, if taking the edge off.
Yeah.
Great. I just love what you can do with the Power Station with the effects and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, aside from the attenuation thing. Yeah, but the great thing about the power pad, no power, plug it in, turn it on, find that level.
Fry your eggs and bacon on the top.
Absolutely. Very cool.
I didn't even sit there, it's a bit late now, but I didn't see how hot it got. Okay. Introduction to attenuation. Please tell us in the comments below how you would like that expanded, what we could do next, maybe what you would like to hear.
There are so many units out there.
Yeah, if you're saying, oh, should I buy the Weber or the this, it's like,
yeah,
don't know, because they're all, I think you tune your rig to work.
Yeah.
That was like
Absolutely, and there's some really cool stuff. There's one coming out soon. Actually, they'll be really interested to look at. Iron Man. What's that?
That is by Tone King.
Tone King.
Yeah, I've seen the 30-watt one, which is great.
We saw that in January. It was
I've actually played it, demoed it with Pete on Anderson's TV, and the really cool thing about that is you can set 2 levels and foot switch between them.
Ah, the maker.
Yeah, but as the last one I saw was only available up to a 30-watt amp.
Right.
So whether
final point about the passive thing, there'll be ratings on them. If you have if it's rated at 50 watts, you can do 20-watt amps, 30-watt amps. That's fine, but you can never go over that rating because you will destroy your amplifier.
Yeah. Does it wear out your power tubes? Yes, because running your amp hard wears out your power tubes. Does it create any more damage than that? Things like cathode stripping and all of that. I went through about 18 forums yesterday and spoke to a number of amp designers, all of whom disagree.
Okay.
So I know people have been running attenuators for years with no problems.
Just turn it up. What's more, you'll be a man, my son.
In conclusion on our video on attenuation, just play loud. Just play loud.
Brilliant, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed that. Really want to say a massive thank you to everyone that's subscribed. Thank you so much. We've hit 100,000. We are delighted beyond words. Thank you to everyone who's gone to our store and bought themselves a garment or that Pedal Show Home Pregnancy Kit. It's all there.
Yes! And let me tell you, it's positive.
Stop it. All right. A big thank you to our preferred retailers in the UK and Europe is...
Anderton's Music of Guildford, Surrey.
In the USA is...
Riff City, who've just opened an awesome new store in Minneapolis.
And we're on the way there.
We're on the way there.
If you're watching this, we've either just seen you or on the way there.
Yep.
So either hello or thank you and goodbye. In Australia is...
Pedal Empire in Brisbane.
Fantastic. And also, of course, massive thank you to our guys on Patreon. Yeah, you guys are legends, hammer legends, all of you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.